Good evening and welcome to Wrestling Rewind. I am Angel Amoroso and I am joined by my co-host, the Iron Man, Tommy Cairo. Tommy?
Who couldn't wait for his cue?
I'd like to say hello to everyone now.
Hello, everybody.
So this week's Wrestling Rewind, we will be focusing on wrestling archives. So, Tommy, if you want to get right into that, since we only have an hour, let's get right into wrestling archives.
Absolutely. So this takes me back to being a child. So I'm enjoying this. So what we're going to do is going to read this description of on this day, and we're going to compare it to across the country, the other major Crockett promotions. So this was a WWWF, it was still All-Star Wrestling, January 20th, 1979, at the Hamburg Fieldhouse. We all know it well. Your current champions are as follows: WWWF Heavyweight Champion Bob Backlund, and Tag Team Champions Tony Garea and Larry Zbyszko. Pop culture number ones of the time. Movie of the week: Superman, starring Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman. Number one song of the week: Left Freak by Chick. Number one TV show of the 78-79 season: Laverne and Shirley, starring Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams. There's just a note here. The following wrestling exhibition requires discretionary viewer participation. I have to stop there 1 second. Vince McMahon Sr. was the first one to let everybody know through this little message that played before every single show. Exhibition. Look up exhibition. All right, so here we go. Your hosts are Vince McMahon and the legendary Bruno Sammartino. It appears we are pulling footage from two different episodes, which would explain the longer than usual runtime of the WWE Network. So the first match was Steve Travis against Baron Miguel Cecluna, the ultimate bad guy. I told him when I met him in the locker room for the first time, I hated you when I was a kid. He loved it. Okay, they're going to give you the description. Travis keeps Cecluna grounded with arm drags and an arm bar. Word on the street is Travis was originally hired with the idea he would be part of the Valiant family. When it was doubtful Handsome Jimmy would get along with Luscious Johnny. As we know what happened in 1979, Luscious Johnny, obviously, Cecluna breaks free from I guess he had him in an arm bar, all about, and starts pounding on Travis. He's a WWE Hall of Famer, folks. This angers Travis and he fights back, but Cecluna punches Travis and delivers a weak kitchen sink knee down low. Travis comes back again, and he's actually a pretty good, fired up babyface. At least what you see here in the WWF. Cecluna manages to knee drop and come down on the throat, but the ref still counts two as Travis rolls his shoulder off the mat. Travis has enough and fires back with a series of punches, but the Baron cuts him off and lands another knee drop for a 2 count. Cecluna tries to snapmare Travis, but Travis counters to a backslide and gets a quick 3 count on the Baron. A backslide. You know, you catch it quick, you catch the guy off guard, it makes sense. Travis is a fine lower level babyface. I'd like to see what he could do against a better wrestler like none other than Johnny Rodz, for example. So the match was rated a half a star. So right here, you see now, my perception growing up for a lot of these guys, I got this whistle because of my tooth. I'm sorry. I apologize. I will have my teeth back. My dog.
It's no big deal. Oh my Whistle God. Away, Tommy.
So with this, like, I must have been on a different level and actually saw the real ability, not the person that was being pushed as a winner. Not that it was always the case, but I had to look at each case and is the guy that's going under, is he actually superior to the other guy? And like Steve Travis, I never thought of him as a lower level guy. Why? Because in my mind, I appreciated that he was very good. So I would never accept him as a lower level. In my head, he was at least a mid-card guy. So that goes to show you the perception isn't always out what the intention of the gimmick, depending on the person. I mean, you know, a lot of these guys that I recall were not the top of the card. Most of them were journeymen, or what we call I never like to use the word jobber. Scrub, I never heard. That was never circulated in my area. So I think it's
It's
a
more of a
derogatory
current
term.
term, I think.
Yeah, so that's the difference I see right off the bat with that match. So we'll give a quick little summary from each one. Do you agree with that? Like, I don't know if you
Yes.
even know who Steve. You know who Steve. I mean, he's a good-looking guy. He was built, and he could, you wonder like, why did they make a star out of him? Because he was so good at making guys that were the shits look good. But you would think, wouldn't you want the best of both if you were a promoter? Wouldn't you want a guy that actually was good, as good as anybody else?
You would think.
It's politics. Yeah. Jimmy and Johnny Valiant with none other than Captain Lou Albano versus Joe Mascara and Kevin Victor. Now, I have to look these guys up later because I never heard of them. I got to see who they are. We'll have one of those guys on.
Yeah, maybe.
Sure.
Dig up
All
some
right,
of that.
Did you catch Joe McHugh? That's the ring announcer, announcing for Dr. George Sahorian. That's a big name. As the ringside doctor. Hilarious. Handsome Jimmy and Luscious Johnny are such a weird combination with such different personalities. Creatively, clearly handsome Jimmy could have plenty of opportunities to work singles elsewhere after his successful run in Memphis. Victor and Mascara never had a chance as the Valiant Brothers destroy these guys. Johnny delivers a few elbow drops to finish off Victor in 4 minutes and 12 seconds. After the bell rings, the Valiant Brothers and Captain Lou continue their attack on these jabronis in and out of the ring. Really strong booking as they clearly have plans for the Valiants for 1979. Is he being sarcastic when he says really strong booking? What do you think about that way of presenting a show? You just beat the guy. He has no offense. So essentially you beat nobody. If you beat a guy, so I think they were a little off with that. I think it should have been.
You're only as good as your opponent, some would say.
Yeah.
So take that
Yeah.
into consideration.
Well, also consider that while the NWA was doing, or Jim Crockett was doing his thing, the WWF became increasingly cartoonish. So it's a whole different, like if you came from Crockett and you worked with the guys up here, you'd be stiff. They'd be like, whoa, because that's how they worked. Let alone every night, All right, Ivan Putski versus Tony Russo. Now, Tony Russo was a short, stocky Italian guy. Like, he just was a barrel, but like he was a pretty decent hand, he could work, he could somebody look good. Russo shows he's actually dumber than a headlock. This is not our writing because he thinks a headlock is going to keep a guy like Putski contained. He decides to hammer down Putski, but that never works either. Meanwhile, Bruno discusses different ways of training to maintain power while dropping weight. Bruno's doing his own thing while he's commentating. Putski eventually just has enough of Russo's attempts and hits him with the Polish hammer for the win in 4:22. They're all like 4 minutes. Putski loves getting on the house mic and yelling things. He wishes everyone a Happy New Year and hopes they had a good Christmas. Well, I'm not a fan. He coerced me to take him to the airport since I was going that way anyway, my first show, right? And he left. He talked about himself the whole way there. You couldn't say a word. And he left banana peels and orange skins in my back seat.
Oh, nice.
That's my experience with Ivan Putski.
Very nice.
Vince McMahon meets with Captain Lou Albano and his Valiant boys at ringside, which I always loved. Albano calls the Valiant Brothers his great find and looks to get revenge on Tony Gurria and Larry Zbyszko for stealing his WWWF tag belts. He feels the Valiants are now ready for title matches. He dares any twosome to get in the ring to see if they can last 10 minutes with the Valiant Brothers. Handsome Jimmy does a Handsome Jimmy promo. He must be an Eric Clapton fan, while Luscious Johnny is a little serious, stating how stating how hard they have been wrestling while they were gone the last 3 years. Jimmy hates short people. Albano repeats his challenge over and again, and Vince has grown tired of hearing from these guys. Just hilarious. Jimmy Valiant, you ever watch him, see how he works? Like, it reminds me of a more modern time, Dustin Rhodes. Okay, the smoothest, the best. Nothing looks. It's just amazing, and that's how Jimmy Vine. He got it like in a groove, and he had rhythm, and it kind of worked.
He had enough charisma to pull everything off. The first time I saw him, it was in USWA Memphis, and must have been like 88, 89. And he doesn't look like much, but he puts on a hell of a performance. He draws you in and, makes you watch him. And then once you watch him, you don't regret that you did. Right. Valiant Family.
I thought he was the coolest. I read an article when his real name, I believe, is John Vallon. And I read an article that was obviously about him before they called him Jimmy Valiant. And it was Big John Vallon. I was posing. And I remember that. And I always thought, before he got that more goofy kind of gimmick, I always thought of him just always had his trunks up to here. And he posing. It's just, really, if you think about it, he's another guy that a few people copied off of, such as Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, you name it. If it wasn't Jesse the Body was the first, and there was a whole line of them. Look how many Nature Boys there are. Nature Boy Roger Kirby, Nature Boy this, Nature Boy that. There's a million of them. And it's funny that, you could just, I know who I'm talking about.
And they continue to grow.
Ongoing. Right. Yeah, and even look at Buddy Rogers. But to me, the best, by far. Mainly because of his ability to cut a promo like no other. Superstar Billy Graham, brother. The best. Superstar Billy Graham. The best.
Of course.
His promos are when he does the one about, I am wearing the colors of autumn. I have the colors of autumn on my body. And he got some of that from who? Another sport. Muhammad Ali.
The original entertainers there.
Yeah. Now, this is one of my favorites, although he couldn't work a lick. Bulldog Brower. I used to be a big Bull Brower power because back when I was a kid and IWA aired, they were out in New Jersey. They ran in big stadium there. They were opposition because we were like, when we came across it on TV one night, we were like, what the hell is this? And of course, through the magazines, I knew who those guys were, Mil Mascaris and all that. But, those guys, they were almost like ahead of their time. And he was there. And I was like, totally, this guy's nuts. Like he really, he used to do all that. Where Maniac Mark Lewin got, everything's a copy, really. So Joe McHugh, the ring announcer, of course, calls Brower the one-man riot squad. There's a lot of young guys we'll see in 1979, and Bulldog Brower ain't one of them. He's got to be nearing 50 at this point. He's best known for being one of Bruno Sammartino's longest and most consistent opponents throughout his 8-year run as a WWWF champion. However, he's a wild man and seems to have a lot of energy to beat up Charlie Brown. You remember Charlie Brown? He was a black guy, 6'2", 240,
sure,
perennial worker, been all over. He is a wild man and seems to have a lot of energy to beat up Charlie Brown. He tips Brown upside down backwards over the top rope and onto a ringside table. Brower then proceeds to stomp the crap out of Brown on the table and then repeatedly ram his face into it. Yes, I love it. This is the author. Bulldog allows Brown back into the ring, and Charlie mounts a comeback with a pair of headbutts because, he's black. Bulldog, this guy's hysterical, cuts Charlie off and flings him to the floor where he slams the wooden steps across the back of Brown. And we thought we invented extreme wrestling.
Right, exactly. This is like you're describing a hardcore match right here. And what year is this again? So think about who invented what.
So let's see. But here's the best part, right? Rams into his face. Yes, I love it. Bulldog allows Brown back into the ring, and Charlie mounts a comeback. Already? So they were doing it back then. He just got thrown out of it. He didn't, hobble around the ring, maybe try to make it in a couple times. Brower cut him off.
No selling or anything, just right back in the ring. Boom.
You know,
He's
well, I
Superman.
guess maybe because it really was his gimmick, though. You know.
Okay.
No, but why? No, that's wrong for the other guy to make the comeback.
But yeah,
It's wrong for the other guy to make a comeback. All right, let's see what Charlie does. He throws Charlie back into the ring. Charlie mounts a comeback with a pair of headbutts. Bulldog cuts Charlie off and flings him out to the floor where he slams the wooden steps across the back of Brown. Brower then rolls Charlie inside for a knee drop and the win at 1 minute and 56 seconds. Brower may be old, but he can still kick your ass. I think it's hysterical. You know, I mean, if I was Brower, I wouldn't have been too happy that, you know, he just made a comeback that quick, you know, unless you hit him in the head prior, because you can't hurt his head. Then he can come back and
so a little bit at least, you know.
Yeah,
I'll come right back.
They were making some booking mistakes right here. All right, this is a good
at least
one.
back then they had somewhat of an excuse making booking mistakes. Now I don't know so much.
Right.
So
All right.
they should have learned their lesson from all this.
Exactly. So we got a pretty good one here. This is another guy in here who, you know, I know when I wind up having a piece of paper and writing names down, because the names that I don't know, I have to know. I got to know who they are. How do I not know them? So anyway, you got.
Well, that's what Wrestling Rewind is about. You know, you take it back, you look up some stuff, you dig up some archives, and you find out some history.
That's right.
Moving on.
And this is when it was a blast, really. Imagine being one of those guys in that time. Great. But the best is when they tell the story. Bruno tells a story about the night he won the title, and he went alone back to this little hotel, and he bought a rotisserie chicken in like a storefront and a gallon of orange juice, and he went back and he had his feast, and he was the champion. So humble beginnings, right? All right, so this is Garea and Zbyszko against Johnny Rods and a guy by the name of Bull Molino. He was another one of those guys on a long list, Hispanic guys that they used to put guys over because they generally were pretty good. So Bull Molino was another, you know, stocky guy. Zbyszko and Rods have a nice scuffle on the mat to start. They end up on the floor for a moment. Back inside, Rods goes to slapping Zbyszko and delivers some elbow drops. When Larry Z gets to his knees, Rods starts punching on him. Tag to Molino. Zbyszko kicks him back as he comes off the ropes. Molino does a poor job of preventing the tag as Zbyszko reaches Garea. He really lays in a punch on Molino and whips him from corner to corner. Rods tries to leap at Garea but misses and gets grabbed so the baby faces can whip the heels into one another. The champs continue to dominate with arm drags and arm bars. Eventually, Rods catches Garea with a knee to the stomach and makes a short comeback. Garea reverses things on Rods and whips him into the corner for a scary Ray Stevens bump to the apron. So I think that they're referring to what Ric Flair does. So he didn't do it.
The flip over into the corner.
Yeah.
That turnbuckle, yeah.
Yep. So here, Garea reverses things on Rods and whips him into the corner for the Ray Stevens thing. Molino comes in and chokes Garea up against the ropes, only to get popped in the face by Larry Zbyszko. Tag to Zbyszko. He avoids a big splash off the ropes by Rods. Garea and Zbyszko double team Rods while he's tied up in the ropes. Oh, but it's flat out murder. When it happens to Tony Garea, right? So in other words, now the heels are they're getting away with it. I mean, the faces are getting away with it. Molino is whipped into a corner, but then Johnny Rods lowers the boom on Garea. While with Molino as the legal man, Garea slaps on the abdominal stretch. Wow. For the submission. 9 minutes and 32 seconds. They should have left Garea and Molino in the locker room and just had Larry Z and Johnny Rods battle it out. Half a star. So that's going to do it for that particular week. So, I mean, you know what kind of reminds me of? Kind of reminds me of what was happening early in ECW, where things had no rhyme or reason. My first match I ever had with Ivan Koloff was a chain match, a double dog collar chain match. Based on what? We have an argument in a parking lot. So it reminds
Based
me of
on
that
they
where,
needed to start something hardcore and figured,
yeah,
here goes Tommy
but
Caro and Ivan Koloff.
yeah,
Take
but
advantage.
I think what this is telling you though is that looking at it now, it kind of reminds me of when you're booking on a fly at the taping, getting your angles over for the next match, doing the interviews, but you're really not doing anything in the ring to help anybody, it would seem, because you're not utilizing the talent because you're just squashing them. You're not giving them any offense, so you're beating nobody. And it doesn't seem like there's rhyme or reason again. So it's like, we got to get these matches in, let these guys be that strong, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever. I'd rather see the guy, hit at least a couple moves and then miss something, and then the guy hammers him. So I think it's like no different than any other time. While you're doing it and you're in the process, it's easier to look back now and say, wow, that was kind of crappy. You could have done that better, But, it's all to get to a place. And maybe, even back then they were guilty of not really, have a solid foundation to get to your pinnacle. It's a little crappy. I could take those same matches right now and let's rework them, me and you, see what we can come up with. I think we would build a bunch of guys that are enhancement talent now instead of jobbers, and could have offense, and it could be a more competitive match. So I don't know. It's hard to say why that's happening, but it seems to be the trend. But again, it's easier said than done. It's easier to sit here after it's over. I'm sure people have ideas of what I did over the years with the promoting and what you did, all that, But I'll show you something later that I know nobody else has done. So we're going to go now. We're going to switch over to what would be the opposition, okay? And that would be, of course, Jim Crockett Promotions at the time, which I think recently was at that point was the precursor to World Championship Wrestling. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
That's what it kind of morphed into.
Right.
So let me pull this up, and we will go across the country, or at least to the middle of the country. It comes under WCW, but it's got all sub chapters under the menu, and there's everything here. You name it. So we're going to go. The era would be 79. No, it won't be WCW. It will be Georgia Championship Wrestling, and we're going to go. We're going to right in the same time frame exactly. Okay, this is Georgia Championship Wrestling. They were like changing the name, and like you never knew, but it was essentially what would turn out to be the 505, 605, or 605, 705, show that we came to watch World Championship Wrestling. So this is, again, considered Georgia Championship Wrestling, December 8th, 1979. Atlanta, Georgia, TBS 17 Studios. The current champs are as follows. The heavyweight champion, NWA, is Harley Race. NWA Georgia heavyweight champion, the masked superstar, very gracious man by the name of Bill Eadie, who easy 1, 2, 3, 8 minutes put me over right in the middle of the ring like it was nothing. God bless that man. And anybody of that stature that put me over, I mean, come on, it's
nice.
An honor. It is. I mean, in any of those matches that I show pictures of, it's always me getting hurt because like that's the Iron Sheik put me in a camel clutch, and I got hung by Ivan Koloff. But to do the right thing, I hung myself more. Let the weight
give the people what they want to see. You
couldn't hurt my neck anyway. No. All right, so the masked superstars, the Georgia heavyweight, the Georgia tag team champions are Ivan Koloff and Alexis Smirnoff, taller guy. NWA Georgia television champion was Austin Idol. Now check this out. How do you like this? Austin Idol and Ric Flair were obviously in the same place at the same time with the same gimmick. And the same thing when Buddy Landel came around. So that was 3 of them there. That's crazy, isn't it?
Tommy Rich as well, I believe was around.
Yeah. I got to take a sip. I met Tommy for first time last year, I went to sign some pictures, and he was a great guy. Took a little walk, we hung out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now time for something. Let me make this. Yeah, time for something different. That's right. We need to take a break from the WWF. Now, I just did that, and it says it there. I just did it on my own accord, and it says it right here. Take a break from WWF and see what else is happening around the world of wrestling. Okay, if you'll notice, the champions listed above, Georgia now has 3 new champions, all in the span of one evening. I don't know if that is due to lack of knowledge or when the titles changed hands, so the researcher added the date of the title changes and chose the day prior to the airing of the show to list the title changes, or what exactly the Masked Superstar defeated Tommy Rich to regain the Georgia heavyweight title. The Georgia tag team champs, Ivan Koloff and Alexis Smirnoff, beat Ollie Anderson and Jerry Briscoe. Ollie Anderson. Oh, the whole Anderson crew for me is like, now that guy Gene was like 70. He was still trudging around the ring. Take a break already, you know? Retire. You're always talking about beating up young kids
that aren't Anderson to me. Ugh.
You know, they act like they invented wrestling. Yeah. So anyway, the Masked Superstar defeated Tommy Rich to regain the Georgia heavyweight and, you know, the tag title. So now it says here that Ollie Anderson and Jerry Briscoe, while Austin Idol pinned Ray Candy. That's that big Zambui Express guy. Remember him? Ray Candy? He was Big Red somewhere years ago. I got to make sure I know where I left off. If all of it happened in the same night, all those title changes, it's pretty incredible and probably should have been mentioned on the show. Maybe it was. Since the show is incomplete, it's not really fair to say for sure. So we'll just move on. In other news, there's some interesting baby faces, and you'll want to see who they are if you enjoy this era of wrestling. So check it out. Your host is Gordon Soley, the new Georgia heavyweight champion. Masked Superstar talks with Gordon Soley. He says it took him a while to get the championship back from Tommy Rich, but feels no one could beat him right now with the frame of mind he's in. He's looking ahead to Harley Race and the NWA World Title. Now, you know, different style completely, but to me, when you had those scuffles in the studio and guys went at it, and you used to have Lance Russell, oh, come on. Like, even talk to the guy, call the guys by their first name. Oh, come on, Jerry. Like, you know, they hang out together. And it was chaos. And I always liked those brawls in the studio, on the floor, guys doing has his time and you come and interrupt. I don't know. To me, it always seemed real, you know. So we got, now this is interesting. I'd like to find out who this is, but Mr. Excitement, Dick Slater versus Yankee, Ken Dillinger. Now, I'm not sure who that is. Dillinger checks all the boxes for getting cheap heat, heel heat, in a Southern territory nicknamed Yankee. Wearing a Union Cavalry uniform, check, and living in San Francisco, California, check. Not sure if Slater's nickname is sarcastic or what. I love Dick Slater, but he doesn't exactly scream excitement today. Up to this point in his career, he has remained a staple of Florida and Georgia wrestling circles. Slater does a great job manipulating joints here, and Dillinger doesn't just lie there selling the holes. He tries to get out of them. That's key, solely. Dillinger is going to have a mobility problem. Slater hits an elbow drop out of the corner and a forward roll-up pins Dillinger in 420. So the times are on par with WWF, but it sounds like it's a little competitive. But I get a kick out of Gordon Soley. So I read his book, and he really was all over the place. Even though he was doing Florida Championship Wrestling, he would be on these different shows or have segments or whatever. But they credit Soley for being one of the most important figures in getting the sport over at that time, especially down there. Like, he always commented on, I played for Virginia State, you know, fullback, 3 years, captain. You know, he will educate you to give credibility to the guys that you're seeing, which makes sense. Just like you don't ignore where they were before. if the guy was a champion in Japan, by all means mention it, right? Because he's on your show, you should
It
mention
would
it.
only help, you'd think,
Yeah, it
right?
can only help. All right.
Dick
So,
Slater, a groundbreaking in his time for really becoming a hated racist like character.
and tough guy
When he
too.
did that program with
Yeah.
Dark Journey, and
Yeah.
back in what UWF or what was maybe with Bill Watts and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just great stuff. Great stuff,
Yeah.
Dick Slater.
Well, like World War II, right?
Yeah.
All the grannies
He
that
could
are
get away
sitting
with
in the
that stuff
house.
in Georgia, doing that stuff in Georgia
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
incredible.
And as Gordon Soley would say, and say hello to the shut-ins, he would say that on Florida Championship Wrestling, meaning the people that can't get out. So what are these little ladies doing? They're watching the war news and they're watching the Germans. And we got how many Germans during that time? Gimmicks, tons. So we've always done that. Wrestling has always mirrored society, and it's always been it's always been controversial. No different than what we did with Michael Fay. That was what going on. That's not a genius. That's what wrestling is and always has been. So that woman who has no say anywhere outside the chair she's sitting on, she can pick her American boy to kick the crap out of that no good German, and she's getting something.
Or Russian,
or fill in
because that was a favorite. To
Yeah.
stick a Russian in there.
Yeah. So anyway, so we said yeah, so 4 minutes and 20 seconds is another quick one. All right, well this one and we'll wrap this portion up. The Masked Superstar again, Bill Eadie, against Mike Davis. Do you remember Mike Davis?
Yes.
He was from down south. Mike Davis and I forget the other guy. They were the Rock and Roll RPMs.
Yes.
At a time when the Rock and Roll Express, Marty Jannetty, and so it was another along the same lines, not as big time.
Not Danny Davis, Mike Davis.
Mike Davis.
I'm trying to think of the other guy.
He's blonde.
Had a star around his eye. Yeah.
Yeah.
Painted his face up.
I can't remember.
Hmm.
He was a good worker too.
Yeah.
They both were. All right, so is this the same Mike Davis from Starrcade 1984? Because I do not remember him being this scrawny. Of course, there's 5 years in between these matches, but still, Superstar is ready for a shoulder block. But then he goes down to two separate drop kicks and bails out. Back in, Superstar takes down Davis with a headlock, but Davis counters with the head scissors. Superstar gets madder and madder as the match progresses. He stays on Davis with headlocks. Davis backs Superstar into the ropes, but Superstar absorbs a punch and headbutts. He headbutts the crap out of Davis. A big slam gets two. Now he executes several backbreakers, but he picks up Davis off the mat at the count of two. The swinging neck breaker connects, but Superstar picks him up and whips him into the ropes for an epic clothesline. There's the Cobra Clutch down on the mat for the submission. Victory, 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Another great aggressive squash. He will not be beaten. So,
real
essentially
quick.
doing the same thing.
In and out. 3-minute squash.
But I'll tell you the difference. I guarantee this research, you would find that during that time frame when they were doing that, both of them in separate areas, the WWF was using pretty much the same jobbers over and over. So you saw your Bull Palmetto, you saw Sousa, all these guys, right? They just kept bringing in new jobbers. So you didn't see that guy get beat 10 times. So if they wanted to bring him back, make him halfway decent, they could. They didn't kill him. So you just had new meat, like what they did with the Road Warriors, because they couldn't work. They didn't know how to work when they first came. Not even at the end. So then over to Gordon Soley. He's standing by with Gorgeous George Jr., who has his stable of Killer Khan and Professor Toru Tanaka. George says Khan and Tanaka are masters of martial arts and will pit them against each other this Friday night at the Atlantic City Auditorium. The winner comes out $1,000 richer, and the loser will have to find a new manager because Gorgeous George Jr. doesn't manage losers. The Masked Superstar has been waiting patiently to say something and stands front and center to put over his championship match this Friday night with Dick Slater, Tricky Dick Slater, and labels Slater as a stepping stone to get a match with Harley Race over the NWA World title. The tape drops off and comes back to Gordon Solie interviewing the new Georgia Tag Team champs, Ivan Koloff and his cousin, Alexis Smirnoff. I wonder if he's from down south, too.
Probably. A couple of Russians from, what, Tennessee?
Yeah. Alexis will be Koloff and Alexis will be the tag champs for a long time to come, while Smirnoff really adds to the conversation by only saying they will destroy everyone in their way. They meet Tony Atlas and Ray Candy this Friday night over the Georgia tag titles. Tom Shaft, another journeyman worker, shows up and has words for Thunderbolt Patterson. Remember Thunderbolt went on one of those talk shows years ago talking about racism in pro wrestling. They basically told him to shut up. The other wrestlers that were there, oh, shut up.
Really?
All right. Look, here's early Buzz Sawyer. Now that was, what's that?
Yeah, I didn't catch that about yeah, go ahead. Early Buzz Sawyer. Let's get into that. That's great.
Buzz Sawyer, what a maniac he was. Right? That guy was intense. Wow. And
Killer.
He probably had some, some vitamins of some sort. All right, so Buzz Sawyer is very young here. He's only 20 years old here. Already ridiculously talented. I don't know much about Gerald Finley other than he appears a perennial TV jobber. Koloff meets Sawyer to start. He's all over Koloff to start with headlocks and arm bars. Koloff forces Sawyer into his corner to tag out. Smirnoff rolls him around the ring in an armbar. As Sawyer arm drags Smirnoff, Koloff tags in and takes Sawyer to the canvas for a combo head scissors and armbar. Back to Smirnoff. He stays on the arm. Sawyer slams out of the hold, but Smirnoff grabs the foot and tags Koloff to prevent a tag. The Russians will not let Sawyer get out of the corner. Once Koloff hammerlock slams Sawyer, he's able to get loose and hot tag Finley. He catches Koloff with a big drop kick and slams him. Koloff kicks Finley down and then throws him into Smirnoff. Now, check this out. Now we're talking about heels, right? And they're getting opposition. They're giving to the baby faces. The other two matches, the baby faces didn't get anything. This guy's slamming them and everything. There's a method to that. They tag Sawyer for a tag. He comes in at House of Fire, misses a jumping knee drop, tags to Smirnoff. He delivers an atomic drop for 2. Smirnoff applies a bear hug, but tags Koloff. Sawyer ear claps out of the hole, only to be nailed from behind by Koloff. In comes Finley, but he's stomped down by Koloff. I got this thing in the middle of my screen.
No, you're good.
Sawyer rear claps out of the hole, knee drops and tags Smirnoff, who dishes out a slam and applies a Boston Crab. Koloff pushes on Smirnoff's head to add more leverage. Back to Koloff. He gives Finley a bunch of running knee drops to the back. Another double team move takes care of Finley. As Smirnoff slams Finley across Koloff's knee, Koloff picks up Finley off the mat and lets Smirnoff get the pin, 6:53. The Russians really seem to enjoy beating up Finley, I'm saying. But the guys, if you're the heel now, you want to have a reason to beat up these guys, so you let them get something in, because that gets you angry, and now you beat the crap out of them. See the difference between when it was the other way? They didn't give the baby face anything, so it's kind of weird. I gotta question that to a point, but
there's different ways to do things wrong.
Yeah, well, like I always say, they say practice makes perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect. You can practice something all day long. If it's not right, it's not right. All right. Now, how are we doing?
We're on about 40 minutes. Time? So we're on about 40 minutes. So continue.
All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to pick see what we got here. Oh, here now. This is another one. Look at this. This bewilders me. NWA Georgia TV Championship. Austin Idol versus Chick Donovan. You know who
Chick Donovan. That
He's
was the other guy.
Flair,
or was it Chick Donovan? Was the other with No, maybe not.
the rock and roll RPMs. No, it's not. It's like Tommy
Chicky
Lane.
Star?
I think.
Not Chicky Star.
Mike.
I don't know.
Yes. Yes, Mike. So it was Mike. What's the guy's name? Mike from the. We were just talking about him. From the Rock and Roll RPMs.
Yeah,
Mike.
yeah.
Well, it's Tommy Lane is his partner. I'm pretty sure. I forgot the other guy.
Okay. Well, moving on.
All right, so that's another. Yeah. This is another one because Chick Donovan is another like a nature boy. He's got the blonde hair.
Right.
And he's facing Austin Idol, another one. So it's for the Georgia TV Championship. Donovan looks much better with brown hair. So he had blonde. Idol is too busy posing and misses the fact that Donovan is behind him. A nice standing drop kick from Donovan sends Idol to the floor. Back inside, Donovan is all over Idol, twisting and cranking on the arm. Idol pushes Donovan off into the ropes, but Donovan gives him a shoulder block. Back up, Idol catches Donovan coming off the ropes with a knee strike. Idol then sneaks a punch to the throat behind the ref's back, to the blind side of the ref. Darn. He slams Donovan and comes off the second rope for an elbow drop, but lifts Donovan up off the mat after a 2 count. Idol punches Donovan down with the taped fist. Donovan avoids a slam and tries an O'Connor roll, but Idol hooks the ropes. Donovan avoids a running elbow drop, but whips on a drop kick. Idol then applies the Las Vegas leg lock, the figure 4. Flair's there, he's there. I would have thought that
Las Vegas leg lock. I like that.
These guys are going to change their gimmick. But I would think if you were Ric Flair, you'd say no, because they never played it up like it was a big Nature Boy rivalry. So I don't know what the point was of having, and then to have Nature Boy, what's his name there, Buddy Landell at the same time. I mean, wow. I always
it's a lot of peroxide floating around.
Yeah. All right, so they go back over to Gordon Soley. He gives Austin Idol some mic time. He says all of his opponents have one thing in common. They are all losers. No one can escape the Las Vegas leg lock, and he defies anyone to try. Soley mentions there's a guy who has some comments for Austin Idol. The man's name is Ric Flair. We cut to a Ric Flair promo from Mid-Atlantic where he talks about being a young millionaire. He brings a blonde woman to say he's often imitated and never duplicated. There's only one Nature Boy. Woo! Back to Georgia. Idol just thinks guys like Ric Flair and Tommy Rich are just jealous. This Friday night, Idol plans to break Rich's leg. As to Flair, Idol says he wouldn't be seen in public with a woman who looked that bad. Idol wraps up referring to himself as the national TV champ, which is true since they are on cable. Now we cut to an interview done in Knoxville territory as Les Thatcher interviews Dick Slater, who was a big part of the promotion in 1979. They talk about memories wrestling in Atlantic City Auditorium as the building was sold to Georgia State University. Coincidentally, the university also purchased Turner Field, where the Atlanta Braves played until 2016. Of course, with the Atlantic City Auditorium no longer available as a public venue, the Omni becomes the premium building for Georgia Championship Wrestling. Back to the interview. Slater puts over Paul Jones, to the promoter, not the wrestler, for being the man behind all the great matches the people of Atlanta had seen in the Atlantic City Auditorium over these years. Slater then discusses the importance of the Georgia heavyweight title as a way to get an NWA title shot. Thatcher wants to know how Slater would handle the current champ. The masked superstar, Slater, doesn't like guys who wear masks, except Mr. Wrestling 2. He doesn't think the people of Georgia want the superstar as their champion, and doesn't even think the superstar is that good of a wrestler. All Slater needs is a chance to beat him, and he can get this Friday night. There's a little bit left here. Babyface Ollie Anderson stops by, talk with Gordon Soley. Gotta love the facial hair here. Ollie has a dogfight match planned where there are no rules. I don't know who his opponent is, but it sounds wild. After a break, Freddie Miller comes over to tell Gordon Soley their next match involving Ray Candy can't happen as there's no time left. He walks over to Gordon for a talk as he will regain the Georgia TV title. Candy talks about Tony Atlas will be lifting 600 pounds over at the Decatur YMCA. Solely puts them over as an exciting tag team as they close out the show. This was worlds more exciting than the WWF programming. Not that I was going to be surprised. So, what do you make of all that craziness?
Pretty nuts.
Yeah, I preferred it. You know,
Yeah.
Even in my first like magazine interview, you know, I said when they asked me like, where do I see myself? I said I see myself as a part of the NWA because to me it represents the closest thing to, I didn't say that, but it represents true wrestling. Which, you know, you were more likely to have cauliflower ears after working down south or out west or in the NWA than you were, you know, probably on the East Coast. Not forever or always, and you know, not that there weren't guys, but most of those guys applied their trade elsewhere at a way younger age, and they were still holding on tight, you know, and that rubbing. And so when the doctor said you have the beginnings, I was like, yes, like maybe I'll just rub them now, you know. It's a badge of honor, you know, and that's unfortunately how some of the guys felt about this. Like they were more preoccupied with that, you know, like let's get in the ring first. Let me hit you with something that will make you have to do that. You know?
I got to say though, watching Bill Watts' product, UWF back in the 80s, you know, it got really addictive to see people get color every single week. And the brawl, I thought the brawls there were some of the, you know, that was some of the innovators back in UWF and USWA and those territories with those guys that just like, you know, tore it up before anybody else was really doing anything. So
it was
talking about that little,
you know,
that's what I tuned in for.
Like I had, they had the mentality like I had, and then I met Manny, and that was the true manifestation of you like it like that. Let's do it like that, brother, because all it can do is solidify our legacy as you don't want to go in there and do that. Now, I'll say this. You watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, the main roster, I don't know how these guys aren't dead. I mean, it's brutal. Our matches, hard. That would be similar to what those guys did. And me and Manny did. Here, I thought of it like this. It's 1980. Was he? Yeah, I was after ECW. You know, it's weird that time frame, but I was able to have with him that had I not come across him, I never would have had what I like most. I like to work that way. I want people to say, a friend of mine, I sent him a match where Tommy Dreamer, he knocks me out at the end, but you could see that I wasn't, because he was no selling, I was no selling, and I didn't hold back. I was hitting him a lot harder than he was hitting me. I was giving him every reason to take it maybe to the next, you know, level. But I like that. I like people. I've sent that friend to my friend Joe. He goes, like, people appreciate what you did. And you know what? I probably maybe wouldn't do it again because I'm crippled, but it's part of my what I do have as a legacy, or you know, a good story, and I'm respected for that. And again, people will say often, what does that have to do with anything in a worked business? I don't know. I'd rather see a Danny Hodge, a Luthez, you know, I'd rather that if he can do it all. You know, if he's just because he's an amateur and he was a great shooter doesn't mean he's going to make a pro wrestler. As a matter of fact, those are the guys who have the hardest time to make the transition. Bob Backlund couldn't accept that he had to put guys over that he could easily beat in a minute. Like he never made that adjustment. So in my mind, if my top 10 guys, the only one who's not a really legitimate badass would be Bruno, because he wasn't that kind of guy. That's not saying he couldn't break your back because he was strong, but he wasn't a Luthez. He wasn't a Danny Hodge. He wasn't a Billy Robinson. So to me, if you're tough, on top of you can do everything else, they can never take that away from you. It can never make you less. It can always make you more. Yeah, that guy, he can work his ass. Man, that's a tough son of a bitch right there, man. You don't want, if you can, avoid. That's a great thing. Keeps a lot of jerks away. You know what I mean?
Certainly. So go on.
You're up. Oh, I walked into a video store with my wife. I was about 240 pounds, ECW days. And I walked in, I had shorts on. It's ridiculous. So as I walked away from the counter, I said to the guy, "Where's the wrestling videos?" And I guess he didn't hear me the first time. So I asked him again, right? And as I walked away, I heard, "I guess steroids affect your hearing." Well, I went to the desk. I said, "What did you say? Do you believe that he got over on me?" I guess I let him off the hook, because what was I going to do? He said, "Oh no, we're talking about a movie. The lady was on steroids." I'm like, yeah, I didn't believe it, but my wife was like, "Come on, what are you going to do? Beat the..." So we went to a store another time, similar, I think the same store, and this girl's like, so I'm like, "Hi, oh, okay, here, right?" I said, "Honey, what the hell's wrong with that? Do you realize what you look like walking around? You got chains, you're bald, you got a black goatee, you're 230, 240 pounds. Me, I only
Looking the part of something."
Yeah, but me, I'm a little kid. Like when I meet a guy and he's my age, I'm like I feel like a kid. Like he's old, So it's all your own perception is different than everybody else's, So that was, I think, interesting for the simple fact that it shows the differences across and the similarities across the country. And there's many other, every organization you could think of, UWF is in here. We could do some of that. If you like, we have time left, or we're good.
You know what? We're just closing out to about the end here, but maybe next episode we could pick up where we left off on UWF, because I would actually like to get into that. So
yeah, I'll prepare.
Anything you want to close out with, Tommy?
No, but before we go, pick who you want. Can you think of anybody you want to compare it to? You want to compare it to Florida? So we'll do a Florida and we'll do the UWF.
Okay, that's good.
All right.
So the next Wrestling Archives will be, Florida versus UWF, and we'll get into all that history and all of that information. And I hope everyone has enjoyed the first episode of Wrestling Archives and A Spirit of 76 here on Wrestling Rewind. And hopefully you'll join us back next week when we will be here with our first guest, who will be announced shortly. So it's a surprise. So join us back next week here on Monte and the Pharaoh's YouTube. And we'll see you then. Until then, have a nice night and a nice life.